Joining us now, Congressman, Republican 9th District, Southwest Virginia, our good friend Morgan Griffith. We had to get him on because it's been 2 weeks, and if we don't get our Morgan Griffith fix, we get the shakes here at the studio. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be on. How are you this morning?
Oh, we're fired up. So, look, Obamacare, we understand that your leadership has a Obamacare replacement plan under lock and key, lest it get leaked out. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. Now, let me be a little defensive on the behalf of the leadership. They are tweaking it still this weekend. It is my understanding that they'll come out with the full plan first part of the week. There will be some markups next week with an expectation that before Easter we will have a vote. So folks who are worried about not getting time to read it, but as you might imagine, there's all kinds of moving parts, and you have at least 2 different committees working on it, and you have a situation where you've got to figure out what the Senate parliamentarians will agree to under all their crazy rules, and what can be used in reconciliation. And so you've got to make sure you slide all those pieces in, and then you have to make sure that you've talked to as many people as you can about different component pieces of it before you bring the whole thing out. Because, look, you've seen the protests. The Democrats will take any misstep, and there will be some. Trust me, there will be some. It's just the way that the beast is. But they will take any misstep and blow it up. They'll make a mountain out of a molehill. And so what leadership wants to do before it gets out there is to make sure they've got it as good as they think they can get it. Now, is that perfect? No. Do I think they'd be better off just saying, here's 5 drafts and we're going to put it together? Yeah, I think that's probably good advice, and a number of us feel that way. But at the same time, I don't think it's some nefarious conspiracy to hide this thing from the American people and have people voting on it before they've had a chance to read it. If that were the case, I'd have to vote no.
So what you're saying is one of the reasons they don't want to piecemeal it out is because it's going to get attacked by the Democrats and some Republicans 3 ways to Wednesday and in the media. So you really want to wait until you get a consensus so that you can present the whole plan rather than get it attacked on each piece of it before it's all put together. And you're also saying, as I understand it, I don't want to paraphrasing now, is that it's still moving. I mean, nobody settled on anything and there's still changes being made, and you don't want to litigate those changes in a public forum. Is that my understanding?
Well, I think that's fairly correct. Now, look, if we're going to do it before Easter, leadership's going to have to let everybody take a look at it pretty soon, and my understanding is that'll come first of the week.
All right, so how involved is Morgan Griffith in this?
Well, I was a little amused yesterday because you read all the press reports about the people going to the room where the plan was being hammered out.
Right.
I was in a different room.
Why were you in a different room?
Because there's more than one piece being hammered out. There's more than one piece being looked at.
Right.
Exactly what I was saying.
Right.
So Energy and Commerce has a piece of it. I was looking at a piece of it at the same time they were, knocking on the door at a different room. And that's the reason that I think it's, I still think it's better to get some of it out there, but I understand what leadership's trying to do. They want to make sure they've got as much of it worked out as they can in advance. Look, it's going to be attacked no matter what.
Right.
Particularly by the Democrats. And
right.
Look, there are pieces of it, particularly on that I don't fully understand that are being done by the Ways and Means Committee that I'm not comfortable with right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep talking about tweaking it and dialing it in, and the people who are interested are hopefully being listened to. I was in a meeting with some people who are concerned, like I am, earlier this week, and hopefully some of those suggestions will be listened to, and we'll see something when it finally comes out. We'll see something that's better than a lot of the rumors we've heard. And again, I'm familiar with the E&C side and can't discuss that in detail, but I'm vaguely familiar, as everybody is, with what's going on at Ways and Means, and some of that does cause me some concern. We're told behind the scenes that President Trump is in favor of what's being done. I've let leadership know that once they get the final piece out, President Trump needs to come out and tell us that he's in favor of this, because we need to know. if he's not in favor of it, then we need to go back to the drawing board. Because as you've been saying this morning, he's leading a revolution. And, if we come up with something that he's opposed to, we can't be pushing that forward at this moment in history.
I agree with you. He's got to weigh in. I think that's pretty sage advice you're giving. So, look, let me just be candid with you. Tell my audience, this is why we can't go more than 2 weeks without getting Congressman Griffith on our show, because you're like the chairman of the Straight Talk Express as far as I'm concerned. You always tell it like it is. So we appreciate that. I mean, there's no political circle talk. You just tell it like it is. So let's get to these 15 million people that have insurance now that didn't have it, that's being subsidized, or they're getting it for free, basically. And so one of the plans is a tax rebate. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky went bananas on TV this week attacking that, saying, why would Republicans do an entitlement? And I get where he's coming from, but the problem in society, Congressman, is if you've got 10, 15, whatever the number is, 15 million people that you've given something to and subsidized it, it's an entitlement. I mean, how do you just then take that away and say, well, too bad, we made a mistake. Good thing you had it for a while, but now you don't. Is there going to be some way to deal with those people?
There is, and there's a couple of different versions of that floating around. But you're right, and we never, as we campaigned on repeal and replace, we said we weren't going to leave those people out in the cold. So we're looking at a couple of different things, some block grants back to the states to help folks with the ability to do some creative things. We'll let the states figure out different creative things, but the basic plan would be something along the lines of, again, still some moving pieces, but something along the lines that we will send some grants back to the states for them to create ways that those people with pre-existing conditions can be covered. And then what they're talking about, and I'm a little uncomfortable with this, but this is out there in the news, so I'm not revealing any secrets. They're talking about advanced refundable tax credits, which means basically a check to those people who otherwise don't have insurance. Now, the theory is we've already created an entitlement,
right? Because
an employer who pays for insurance gets that tax deduction. We're just extending that to people who don't have employer-provided health insurance.
Right.
One of my problems with that is that if I were suddenly a sole practicing attorney again, and I provided my own insurance, I might be one of the higher incomes in the community, but at age 58, at least for a couple more weeks, at age 58, I would receive the same advanced refundable credit as somebody who was 58 and working at Dollar General, making $35,000 a year as a manager of the Dollar General.
Right. Right.
There's just something wrong with that. It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right.
So you're saying the one plan is that it's based on age rather than income.
And that's exactly right. And you could do both and narrow that number down. These things are still being discussed, which is part of the reason I think it's probably, and I have not seen any of that section as they're crafting it, but I think that's probably why, because there's so many different pieces that they have to make a final decision before they unveil this product. And look, there'll be changes after it's unveiled as well, in my opinion, but they want to get it as good as they can because they know that the media, the Democrats, are going to attack it no matter what we do, relentlessly, without good cause. And then they know that there are going to be some very well-meaning conservatives who will point out some flaws, and hopefully we can fix those. So and I think that's legit. But they're going to be, it doesn't matter what we do for Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi. They're going to attack it as being evil and, the end of the world. And of course, Nancy Pelosi, as you were saying earlier, is the one who said, we're going to, or maybe it was one of your callers, said, oh, these are the people who put the bill out there and said you've got to pass it, before you can find out what's in it.
It's ridiculous.
Well, we're not going to do that. You're going to know what's in it. It's going to take its lumps. And in the end, every congressman and woman is going to have to decide, is it better than what we have now? And is it close enough to our philosophy that we can hold our nose and vote for, because there's no way to get a bill of this magnitude related to health care without having some parts of it that you think we could have done better.
Right.
And then hopefully we'll have an opportunity as we see, and I hope we won't lock in and say, now we're locked into this for 20 years. I hope what we'll say is, let's see how it works, and then come back in and tweak it where we can to make it more conservative and to make it better. But the Democrats aren't going to vote with us at all on this first round. They want us to fail. They want President Trump to fail.
Right.
And that's why we've got to have a plan that he supports, that we can hopefully find consensus on the Republican side. I don't think we're there yet. Leadership thinks they are. I don't think they're there yet. But I know they're working on it, and I think we have to give them at least until first of the week to try to figure that out.
I tell you what, we've had a number of Republican congressmen on this week, as well as a couple of Democrats, and that was the most salient, cogent description of what is going on that we have heard, and we want to thank you for that. That's why we need to get you on, Congressman, on a regular basis. I got about 3 minutes. I want to talk about the Ed Gillespie for Governor campaign. I know you're a Gillespie enthusiast. New poll came out. He's the clear front runner, but then you look at these protests, you say, well, how can a Republican win? Give us your thoughts right now on the gubernatorial race in Virginia.
Well, I think Ed can win the race. Look, we've got some good Republicans running. I never want to knock them, but Ed has shown that he can run a race and come very, very close. He got no support from the national folks and came within about 16,000 votes of winning that race. He has been around and worked hard on conservative issues behind the scenes before he ran for the United States Senate. I first got to meet him. I'd heard of him, but I first got to meet him when he was chairman of the party. I was a member of State Central, and he did a nice job there until he was called back to D.C. to work for the president to try to straighten out some things. He's a problem solver, and people recognize that he's a worker, and he will be in every part of the state. He's been in Southwest Virginia a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, and that's why he has a majority of the State Central members. That's why he has a lot of conservative leaders supporting him, and a lot of us who are elected officials. Now, that's not to knock the other fellas, but the bottom line is, if we want to win the governor's race, I believe Ed Gillespie's the guy to make it happen.
So why do you believe that Ed Gillespie is the only Republican who can actually win in November?
Well, he's got name recognition, and you can build name recognition in other ways, but you've got to pay for it, either in sweat equity or money. In a state the size of Virginia, starting out now, if you're not already having pretty good name recognition in March for an election coming up in November, you're already behind, and you can't make that up, and we'll be constantly behind the Democrats, I believe, with the other candidates. While Frank Wagner's got good name recognition in the East. In all fairness, he's a good guy. He's a friend. But nobody out west knows him except for those of us that served with him in the legislature.
Right.
And the same can be said about all the other candidates. They may have their pockets, but they don't have the name recognition statewide. We don't want to start out behind in a year when the Democrats are going to try to make this about Trump and not about the problems that we have in Virginia and the things that McAuliffe has done wrong. They're going to want to talk about Trump. We won't have seen all the jobs that Trump will create with his policies kick in yet. We cannot start out behind. We have to start out ahead, and that is Ed Gillespie is the man who can do it for us.
All right, you heard it right here. Morgan Griffith, an enthusiastic backer of Ed Gillespie for governor, saying that he is the only Republican who can win in November. It's going to be an uphill fight no matter what, but Ed Gillespie right now, the undisputed front runner. I had him at 3-5. I dropped him to 2-5. Something dramatic has to happen for him to be derailed, I believe, on June 13th. But we'll find out. That's why we have primaries. I want to thank Congressman Morgan Griffith for being with us. You are truly, sir, the chairman of the Straight Talk Express. Thank you for clearing up you cleared the whole Obamacare. I've had all these people on, and you cleared the whole thing up in like 10 minutes. It's so refreshing to have you on. And as I say, we go 2 weeks and without you on, and we start getting the shake. So thanks for being with us.